Hello, everyone. Welcome to a hi- welcome to a higher dimension. Welcome to a higher dimension. I'm Gloria Danvers from Gloria Danvers Hypnosis, and I'm your host for this podcast. Today, I want to move into a question that is not really about human beings, and this one will have a little bit of a different slant because human beings, who can blame us, have a habit of because human beings have a habit of making every spiritual question come back to them. What does that mean for us? How does this help us? How do we use this? What is the lesson? But not everything in the universe exists as a lesson for human beings. There is consciousness that simply is. Energy has its own nature. Energy has its own nature. Many forms of intelligence may exist completely outside the human story. So today I want to talk about elementals, not as symbols. So today I want to talk about elementals, not as symbols, not as tools, not as reflections of our emotions or our spiritual growth, but as their own form of consciousness. What are they made of? What kind of vibration do they carry? What is their density? How does their energy organize itself? And what are they in the greater body of the living earth? If human beings are sparks of the all that is, little chips of divine consciousness having a human experience, then maybe elementals are not sparks. Then perhaps elementals are not sparks in quite the same way. Possibly elementals are currents, living currents, not separated from the earth in the same way a human soul seems to separate into an individual life, but woven into the energetic body of the planet itself. A human soul incarnates into a body with boundaries: gender, name, memory, personality, and ego. A sense of I am this person and not that person. An elemental does not form that way. Its consciousness does not begin with separation. It begins with vibration, with frequency, with movement inside the living field of Earth. In that sense, an elemental may be less like a soul dropped into a body and more like a pattern of intelligence, if you will, forming inside an element, a different type of mass concentration, or a vibratory sustained tone, maybe a deep rhythm or a pulse. But it is a living frequency gathered around earth, water, fire, or air, and that gives us a very different picture. An elemental may not be a little person made out of an element. It may be the awareness of that element gathered into form. Not physical form the way that we understand physical form. This is an energetic form, a much more subtle form. A body, if you will, made of vibration rather than flesh. A fire elemental would not simply be a creature associated with fire. It would be a living expression of the fire frequency, which is the vibration of heat. The ignition, then combustion. There's hunger, which turns into purification, expansion, transformation, and light. Fire has a quickening vibration. It accelerates, it consumes, it changes the state of matter. It releases what is trapped inside form. So the consciousness of fire would not be gentle in the human sense. It would be bright, fast, consuming, consuming. It would be catalytic. It wouldn't think in stories. There is not a human sentience there, and it's important to make that decision. And that's an important distinction to make. It would know, and that's the best word I can come up with, itself through transformation. A water elemental would be formed if a completely different vibration. Water does not burn through form. It surrounds it. It enters it. It carries it. It carries it, dissolves it, reflects it, and remembers it. The vibration of water is movement, containment, depth, flow, pressure, emotion, memory, and exchange. A water elemental may not have consciousness as a fixed point. It may have consciousness as a current. It may not be one thing sitting in one place. It could be a moving field. An intelligence that knows through flow, tide, absorption, release, and return. An intelligence that knows itself through flow, tide, absorption, release, and return. Earth elementals would carry the densest of the elemental vibrations, not dense as in dull, but dense as in concentrated, in the form of minerals, roots, stones, soil, and under pressure, growth, decay, and time. Earth consciousness may be slow because it is deep. It may know through weight, compression, formation, and endurance. Its intelligence would not rush because rushing beings belong to a lighter frequency. An earth elemental may be closer to the dream of matter itself. An earth elemental may be closer to the dream of matter itself, the part of earth consciousness that knows how to become form, how to hold a mountain in silence, how to turn death into soil, how to carry memory in stone, and how to grow roots through darkness. Air elementals would be the least dense of the four, in the ordinary sense. Thereby their vibration would be movement, message, sound, breath, atmosphere. It would be thought, pressure, and space. Air does not and cannot hold form for long. It passes through, it carries and it shifts, it surrounds and vibrates. An air elemental may be a consciousness of movement rather than a consciousness of shape. It may know, again, the best word that I can come up with, itself through vibration, sound, direction, and change. If earth is the consciousness of form, air may be the consciousness of movement around form. These are not personalities. That's important. A human being is deeply identified with personality. We have preferences, and we have wounds and memories and fears and desires and opinions. We are full of internal contradiction. Human consciousness and the energetic form it takes is thick with personal history. Our very density is a storage locker which experiences, creates, and holds who we are. Elemental consciousness is not thick with personal history. It is condensed in accordance with elemental law. Fire does not need a childhood to be fire. Water does not need a name to be water. Earth does not need an ego to hold form, and air does not need motivation to move. This may be one of the biggest differences between human consciousness and elemental consciousness. Human consciousness individualizes, An elemental consciousness specializes. A human soul becomes a person. An elemental frequency becomes a function of the living earth. That doesn't make elementals lesser. It makes them other. And that otherness is the whole point. If the earth is alive, not just biologically alive, but energetically alive, then the elements, then elementals are part of her ecosystem and anatomy. Just as the human body has organs, currents, fluids, nerves, electrical impulses, the earth also has systems. She has ley lines and magnetic fields. She holds underground waters. Her volatility manifests in volcanic eruptions and fires. Her volatility manifests in volcanic fire and eruption. She creates wind currents. Her bones are mineral beds. She is woven through forests and plants, creating root networks. Her shifts set loose storm systems. And then there are her sacred places, where the veil will feel thinner, or where the energy is heavier, and where the land feels awake. And there are places where the land feels awake and aware. Elementals are the consciousness moving through those systems. They are not separate from the earth, and they aren't mythological accessories. They're part of the living intelligence of this planet. They are the earth's energy body expressing itself through elemental forms. A mountain has a presence because the mountain consciousness is dense, ancient, compressed, and vast. A river will have a presence because water consciousness moves through the land as memory and current. And current. And current. A forest is a presence because the combined field of trees, soil, roots, animals, fungi, moisture, decay, and growth create an intelligence larger than any one part. A storm may have a presence because air and water and pressure and electricity gather into a temporary being of force and movement. And this can be one way to understand elementals. They are not always permanent beings. Some may be long-lasting presences connected to a place. Others may form temporarily when the conditions gather enough energy. Still others may dissipate when human beings cover their habitats with buildings, asphalt, buildings and asphalt. So the density of an elemental may depend on the element itself and the field that sustains it. A mountain will hold earth consciousness longer than any human civilization. And so earth elementals would be more stable, they'd be slower and heavier, and also more enduring. A river or body of water is ever-changing by its very nature. So the water elementals would be fluid and responsive. They'd be reflective, they'd be moving. Water elementals can transform ice, can transform into ice or rain or steam, and still retain what makes them water. Fire elements would be fast and bright and catalytic and temporary unless continually fed. And fire is the element that is fed or quenched by the other elements, by the other elementals. Air elementals would be subtle and quick, shifting, and practically impossible to hold in any kind of form. They are the most capable of carrying tone and vibration, and in fact, hold oxygen, which is the very foundation of life, which is the very foundation, which is the very foundation of human life, of human life. This isn't about good or bad. Good or bad has no meaning here. It is about density and frequency and duration. How this energy gathers, how that energy holds, and how the other energy disperses. Human beings often think that a being has to often think that that human beings often think that a being must have a solid body to be real. But a storm is real, and so is a flame. So is a current, an eddy, a magnetic field, and frequency. All of these elements are very real because not everything real is solid. Elementals may exist in those in-between places. Elementals may exist in that in-between place, not fully physical in the way that we are, but not purely abstract either. They can be etheric astral. They can be etheric and they may be etheric and astral, containing a certain type of energy. They can be partly tied to matter, but not confined to matter. They may be more condensed than a thought form, but less condensed than a physical body. More organized than random energy, but less individualized than a human soul. And that is an important distinction. Random energy moves. A thought form is shaped by the mind. A human soul incarnates through identity. An elemental organizes around natural law. Elementals may be what happens when the living earth's Elementals may be what happens when the living Earth's intelligence takes on a specific vibrational function. They are not merely in nature. They may be one of the ways that nature is conscious, not conscious like a human, conscious like the Earth. And that consciousness is vast. It's distributed and it's impersonal. It's not cold or dead. It's just not sentimental. Nature is alive, but nature is not human. That may be hard for us because we tend to measure consciousness by how much it resembles us. But human traits are not the only evidence of awareness. A forest doesn't need a face to have a field. A river doesn't need words to carry memory. A mountain doesn't need emotion to hold presence. And a flame does not need morality to transform matter. Elemental conscious does not ask, "Who am I?" If there was any thought there at all, it would be, "This is what I am energetically," with the intelligence embedded in the action. And that's the bigger picture. Elementals can be the Earth's consciousness moving as a specialized vibration. They can be the subtle beings of planetary function, the keepers of process. They can be the organizing intelligence inside elements, and those are not small jobs. Without those processes, the living Earth would not be alive in the way that we know her. Fire releases and renews. Water carries and connects. Earth holds and grows. Air moves and communicates. So elementals are part of the living machinery of the Earth. And not machinery in the cold mechanical sense, the living machinery, the energetic organs of the Earth. the beings, currents, or consciousnesses that help keep the planet. The beings, currents, or consciousnesses that keep the planet, that help the planet remain in motion, balance, transformation, and form. That makes them very different from human beings. A human being is a soul moving through a personal incarnation. An elemental is an energetic intelligence moving through a planetary function. The human asks, "What is my life?" The elemental expresses, "This is my nature." The human gathers experience. The elemental maintains frequency. Human beings evolve through stories. Elementals exist through law. A human body is built from matter, but the elemental body is built from vibration interacting with matter. This may be why elementals appear differently to different people. One person may see a shape and another could feel a presence. Another may sense a temperature change, pressure shift. There can be movement or different colors or sound or emotion that does not belong to them. The elemental may not have one fixed appearance because the perceiver's mind is translating the vibration into a form that it can understand. So a fire elemental might be seen as a salamander, a flame being, a spark, a red gold presence, or simply felt as heat and urgency, or simply felt as heat. A water elemental might appear. A water elemental might appear as a figure, a mist, maybe a face in the water, or a blue-green current, or be felt as depth, coolness, or emotional movement. And an earth elemental might be sensed as a gnome, a stone being, a root presence, a heaviness, the invisible guardian of a place, or even a pressure in the body. An air elemental might come through as a sylph, a winged form, a shimmer, a voice, a sound, a breeze, or even a sudden shift in atmosphere. These forms are translations. They're not lies, they're translations. Because when human consciousness encounters non-human vibration, it may clothe. Most often it will clothe that vibration in an image. That doesn't mean the being is imaginary. It means that human perception has to build a bridge. The same energy can be experienced as mythic form, pressure, color, temperature, sound, movement, or knowing, depending on the person and the level of perception. So what are elementals formed of? They are formed of the Earth's subtle energy condensed around elemental function. They are made of frequency. They are made of the organizing vibration of the organizing vibration of nature, which is frequency, force, pattern, field, function, presence, and vibration. Their density is not measured by weight, but by how strongly their vibration can hold coherence. Earth holds coherence the longest. Fire may hold it for a brief moment and then vanish. Water shifts, but it remembers. Air disperses and flows and returns. Some elementals may be ancient because the field that holds them is ancient. A mountain presence may endure because the mountain endures. A spring spirit may remain because the water continues to rise. A hearth presence may exist as long as fire Human attention, shelter, and a place remain woven together. A storm may be born, live, and dissolve within hours, and this does not make it less real. It does not make the others more real. For example, a wave doesn't last forever, but while it exists, it has form, force, and identity. Maybe some elementals are like waves in the Earth's energy body. Let's say they are temporary coherence in a larger field, while others are more like deep currents. And long-lasting presences sustained by land, water, stone, tree, and time. And still others are long-lasting presences sustained by land, water, stone, trees, and time. And this gives us a picture of a living Earth that just isn't a planet with things on it. It is a being with layers. It is an ecosystem with all that that implies. Elementals may live in the layers between physical matter and planetary consciousness. Elementals may live in the layers between physical matter and planetary consciousness. Not in human sentience, but rather in an elemental vibration. And that's where the mystery is. If humans are sparks of the all that is becoming individual, perhaps elementals are currents of the all that is becoming elemental, not separated into the I am the way humans are, more like specialized expressions of the divine intelligence inside matter. A human soul says, let me experience being someone. An elemental current says, let me express this force. Both come from the all that is, but they don't condense in the same way. Human energy condenses into identity. Elemental energy condenses into function. Human consciousness moves through stories. Elemental consciousness moves through vibration. And that's why they may feel so strange, almost alien to us, because we're looking for personality. They're operating as a frequency, and we're looking for words. They are moving as law, and we are looking for motives. They are expressing nature. And maybe that's why the old stories come up. Fairies, sylphs, salamanders, undines, gnomes, divas, land spirits, river spirits, hearth spirits. They may be all different cultural ways of describing encounters with non-human consciousness organized through this living earth. Some of the descriptions are poetic, some are metaphoric, and others may be direct perception of what is good, bad, and unknown. But underneath the names is the same possibility. The earth is not just alive. The earth is ensouled. And her soul isn't just one large field. It expresses itself through countless smaller fields, beings, currents, and intelligences. Just as bees, mushrooms, rivers, winds, minerals, and fires all have roles in the physical ecology, elementals may have roles in the subtle ecology. So they can help move energy through the Earth's body, because the forest isn't only trees. The river is not only water, and the flame is not only chemical reaction. A stone is not only mineral, and the wind is not only air pressure. All of these things may also be doors. Not doors for us necessarily, doors within the living earth herself. Places where consciousness condenses into elemental form. And maybe that's what an elemental is. A condensation of earth consciousness around a specific vibrational law. So it would be a being made of patterns rather than flesh, made of field rather than personality, a form of awareness that does not need to become human to be real, and yet is by definition a soul all the same. They can wear root, river, pressure, spark, mineral, sound. Some may not wear anything that we would recognize as a body or an entity or a sentience at all. They simply exist as a living vibration. And as earth consciousness in motion, as the all that is speaking through the elements. Of our brothers and sisters in different forms. So thank you for being with me here today on A Higher Dimension. If this podcast resonates you, please pass it along to someone who would enjoy it as well. If you're curious about what I do, you can contact me at Gloria Danvers Hypnosis, GloriaDanversHypnosis.com, and book a free consultation. I'd love to talk to you. So until next time, I hope that we can all remember that consciousness is much bigger than humanity, and that all around us in this living earth, there are forms of awareness that we're really only beginning to understand. See you in a few weeks. Bye.